It is time for our February reading wrap-up, and I am so excited because I did activate my reading superpowers and managed to meet my goal of 10 books this month. 10 points to me. For 10 books, that was a total of 3,070 pages, and I had some pretty good reads, some pretty middle-of-the-road reads. Nothing that absolutely stood out and like fan-freaking-tastic amazed me, but some pretty great 4-star reads. And then, you know, some 3 stars, and then one horrendous book that we're not even really gonna get into because I'm too cranky. If you've been here before, then you know how this works. Basically, I separate the books I read into the books that I definitely recommend and think that you should go out and either buy or find them and read them and enjoy the heck out of them. Books I thought that were middle of the road, books they were fine, they were okay, but they weren't like my best friends for life. And then books that I think you should definitely skip it because you do not need that kind of drama in your life. So you can just stay for as long or as little as your little heart tells you. It's up to you. You can just watch the stuff that I recommend and then hop on off of here, watch a different video, or you can stay through to the end and figure out which books to stay away from, perhaps, or maybe not spend your money on. Up to you. Regardless, hi, good to see you, and let's jump into this reading wrap-up. First up is Underground, A Human History of the Worlds Beneath Our Feet by Will Hunt. This is a book I really enjoyed, a non-fiction about a guy who has spent the last however many years traveling around the world and discovering underground places and things and peoples. He spent some time in New York City, he discovers some forgotten subway tunnels there, he goes to the catacombs of Paris, gets lost, goes to caves that few people have seen. He discovers forgotten underground abandoned cities from way back in the day. This is perfect for anyone who's interested in urban exploration, anthropology, archaeology, basically anything fun and interesting and good to read. I really enjoyed this. I highly recommend it if you're at all interested in any of those things. It's just sort of fun to take a look at the world in a different way. You will literally be walking down the street and you won't think of the world the same way after you read this. You'll be wondering what the heck is under there. It's a really interesting, insightful book about a topic I don't think too many people have really dug into. I feel like that was a pun. I didn't mean for it to be a pun, but that's how we ended up, and so I'm just gonna leave it there. Underground is really like half travel diary and half expose or half nerd science on the underground worlds. My dad actually got it from the library the other day, and if I convinced my dad to read it, then you should probably read it too. Next up is Be Frank With Me by Julia Claiborne Johnson. This is a book that was out a few years ago, I don't know. One of those books that I, didn't really know existed, but everyone else seemed to love, and then I jumped on the bandwagon years later. Well, here we are. I really enjoyed this one. It's very cute and sweet and has those perfectly imperfect characters that really lighten the whole vibe, the whole thing. One of our characters, Alice, is a budding assistant in the publishing industry in New York City. Well, her boss says to her, listen, you're packing up, you're going to Bel Air because I need you to commit this author who hasn't written a book in decades. I need you to convince her to finish something so that she can get money she desperately needs. The woman Alice is helping is M.M. Banning, who wrote a best-selling classic novel years and years ago and then never wrote another word since. She's become kind of a recluse, and she does have this younger kid who's 9 years old named Frank. Frank is the coolest person ever and my new role model in life. He absolutely loves like old movies. He wears full suits every day like Frank Sinatra, you know? He likes top hats. He's really weirdly possessive about his stuff. He doesn't like to be touched or hugged. He requires permission for everything, and basically he's just a very unique individual. Naturally, Alice comes along to help out this reclusive author who wants absolutely nothing to do with her, and most of her tasks fall to taking care of Frank. Hilarity ensues. It's sad and funny at the same time, which is a combination I frankly really enjoy. It's really a witty, charming novel. If you liked Where'd You Go, Bernadette, or The Curious Incident of the Dog at Nighttime, either of those, you're probably gonna really like this one. So if you didn't jump on the bandwagon along with me, then now's the time. I'm gonna pull up beside you and you just jump on in, go get this book. I really enjoyed it. It was a 4-star read for me. I just thought it was lovely and endearing, even to my cold, dark heart. Next up is The Victory Garden by Reese Bowen. Not sure if I'm saying her first name right, I'm not gonna lie to you. This novel is set in World War II with a young woman who volunteers as a land girl against the suggestion of her parents. Her name is Emily Bryce and she comes from a much higher station in life, but she's gotten herself in a bit of a tricky situation. She's fallen in love with an Australian soldier, found herself pregnant, and he has unfortunately been killed overseas. So she's in a tricky predicament. for World War II era, okay? It's rough. But she decides to sort of go things on her own. She volunteers as a land girl, as I said. She meets some lovely friends, and she ends up at an estate where she discovers this book of herbal remedies and different things going on, and the little cottage she lives in has an interesting history. This is sort of like a cozy historical fiction. It's probably not like the most, I don't know, startling or in-depth or anything like that, but it is just sort of like a cozy historical fiction in the same way that a cozy mystery is a mystery, but that it's cozy. Is this making any sense? Basically, it's just light and nice and cute to read. I think in my February releases video, I compared it to a Lifetime movie, and yeah, I wasn't wrong. So yeah, it was nice. It was cute. But it's not gonna blow your mind or anything, but it was just like a nice, cozy, comfortable read, easy to fly through, you know, just fun. It was just fun and nice. Those are the books that I definitely recommend, and I say if you're interested in that description at all, go for it. They were fun reads and I really enjoyed them. I thought they were just a good freaking time. Now we're gonna get into the books though that I thought were middle of the road. I liked them, but I did have some problems with them, so it's really up to you. First of those is The Winter Sister by Megan Collins. This one follows a middle-aged woman named Sylvie who returns to her hometown, a place she hasn't been in years, to care for her ailing mother. A mother whom she has a tricky relationship with after the disappearance of her sister, whose body was discovered, but the murder surrounding it was never solved. So she goes back to this place that, you know, there's some dark memories going on, and she runs into the guy who was the boyfriend of her sister at the time of her death. This is the guy she's always blamed for her sister's death, even though maybe she didn't have sound reasoning for that, but she just has a vibe about this guy, and she just doesn't believe that he's as innocent as the cops said he was. It was clear to me, and I don't think the author was trying to hide it, that this book is heavily influenced by Wuthering Heights, and that's to say that it's basically a book about twisted people who are in twisted love. So, yeah. That aspect I didn't really like. I appreciate Wuthering Heights, but I'm not really a fan of it. I'm a Jane Eyre girl, just so you know. To me, it's just like, why are these people so messed up and so weird? You know? I don't get it. I can't say it without saying a spoiler, but I will say that there was a moment that I knew was going to happen. I knew it. You can see it. You can see it a mile away. 200 pages back, I saw that thing coming. But I had hoped that it wouldn't happen because it was really weird and too far for me and just weird. Just weird. Okay, I said weird like 10 times, but it was weird. I wish that it hadn't happened. I wish that the author had been like, just kidding. That was just something to test you with. I would never do that. But she did do it, and it was really hard for me to get past it. I threw up in my mouth a little bit. If you read it, you'll know what I mean. It's pretty obvious. But as a mystery, there's nothing new, there's nothing like, you know, mind-boggling, but it was fairly entertaining, middle of the road, returning home again, murder mystery to figure out with some pretty twisted-ish characters. Twisted in a way, like not in a way that's gonna super impress, but just twisted enough for the genre itself. Was a quick read and just relatively enjoyable, but I did have that one problem with it and a few others where I was just like, that was just too much for me. Next up is The Hiding Place by C.J. Tudor. This is another one of those ones where someone returns to their hometown. I didn't know that there was a theme happening this month, but apparently there was. This one is about a teacher who returns to his hometown, obviously, and it's kind of not clear what his intentions are. Apparently some sort of horrible things have happened in the past, some children's disappearances, there's like a strange landform in the distance that strange happenings occur out of. I can't tell you much without ruining it. If you want the details, I did a full review video on this, but for this video, I'll just leave it at this. It was a middle-of-the-road book. I felt the same way about it as I did C.J. Tudor's previous book, The Chalk Man. I just thought, you know what? It has a lot of potential, has a great setup, but then the middle lags and the ending just barely ties together in a way that just makes sense enough to be complete, but isn't like super satisfying. So, just middle of the road, you know? Next up is Chernobyl by a guy whose last name I'm not going to try to pronounce because I will ruin it. The Chernobyl disaster is something I'm just curious about. I just kind of want to know about it because I honestly feel like what I know I could fit in a 2-sentence paragraph, and that just seemed like a shame to me, and I just wanted to know more about it. This one I got for one of Audible's 2-for-1 credit deals, so score for me. I guess I was just hoping for more. I feel like I really didn't gain much from this other than what I could have read in a few internet articles, which is strange because the book itself is extremely detailed where it's almost hard to follow. You can't keep up with who's who. It doesn't always feel chronological. Just hard to manage and hard for me to feel like I really gained anything from it. This book has really high ratings though, so it might just be me. Maybe it just wasn't a good starting point, you know? Maybe I should have read just a different summation of the events and then read this for more detail if I wanted to. It was a lot about the mechanical failures and a little bit about the political arena at the time, interspersed with some people's own experiences. I don't know why it didn't just connect or didn't make sense or didn't grip me in the way I expected it to, but it just didn't. So take that with a grain of salt. It might just be me, but yeah, I just wasn't super into it. Next up is another non-fiction that I used for researching my Ray Bradbury biography video, and it is called Becoming Ray Bradbury, and it is by Jonathan Eller. This is less of a biography and more of like a who's who's of Ray Bradbury's literary career. So that was kind of a bummer for me because Ray is such an interesting person and I really had to dig to find the golden information that I was looking for in this book. If you want to know the ins and outs, like detailed ins and outs of a literary career and what that would mean, how he started, what books inspired him, what people inspired him, who he knew in the industry, then if you want to read this many pages about that, go for it. But what I was looking for was about Ray and who he was as a person and just about his life, I guess. Some of that stuff was in there, but it wouldn't really make sense how it was divided up. Like there would be a chapter that was titled in a way that would make you think, okay, this is going to be about Ray and his wife Maggie and how they fell in love. Well, half the chapter would be that, and then it would switch back into his literary career stuff again, and then you'd have to finish the story of him and Maggie, his wife, in some other chapter in bits and pieces. So it wasn't chronological, and that made it really, really hard for my mind to pull things together in a way that made sense. And because the stories were so like half told and then finished later, it was just very difficult for me to read as a whole. Like if I was just reading this book not for research, I would still find that extremely aggravating, but especially because I was using it for research and I had a goal in mind, it was extremely frustrating at times and it was very difficult to get through. And yes, I did read every single word in that book and it wasn't easy. There is a different biography by a guy named Sam, I think. I don't remember his last name. That's supposed to be, I think, better. I wish that I had had that one, but this is the only one my library had. So that's what I used, and I don't know. I don't really recommend it. I feel like check out a different biography if you want to know about Ray. Maybe don't read this one because I feel like it just could have been done better. But again, if you did want the detail of like literary exploits and what that entails on an extremely minute sense, go for it. It's for you. Next up is She Rides Shotgun, another book that was super popular a couple of years ago and I just never got it together. Well, I did it finally. I hope you're proud. At times, I really liked this book and I would be completely entranced and just in love with a very unique language. It reads like a movie. There's parts of that that I really like, but there's also some problems with that in a novel setting where, you know, you kind of go from point A to point C and there's very little mention of B. So you kind of have to make some assumptions and just roll with it. This is about a father who was a convicted felon, but he's been released and is now being hunted by some prison gangs that are also on the outside who have connections there. And they're basically out to kill him and whatever remains of his family. He happens to have a daughter, so he goes and gets her from her school one day and they basically just go on the run. At this point, it kind of takes over like that one movie with Natalie, is it Natalie Portman? When she's a kid, it's like The Professional or something, and she's basically trained by an assassin or something like that. I'll pop up the movie cover if you know what I'm talking about. But it kind of takes on that angle where the father tries to train his young daughter to defend herself and she kind of learns to like the violence a little bit too much. Basically them going forward and trying to be released from being hunted essentially. Parts of it I really liked and I thought were really well done and interesting. Parts of it I thought went over the line from clever into clumsy. Some of the dialogue got a little cheesy for me. It also had some repetitive sentence structures and phrasing. So while I thought it had potential and I liked part of it and I liked part of the writing style, also half of it I just thought was too kitsch. That's it for the books that I thought were just like a borrow it status, not a buy it status, but maybe if you're into them or you want to give them a shot, it's up to you. I just don't super recommend them. Now I'm going to talk briefly about the one book that I absolutely hated this month and think that you should 1000% skip and avoid at all costs. For me, that book was Suspicious Minds, the newest Stranger Things novel. Now, I went on a full ranty review that was like, not, I kid you not, 17 minutes long. So if you want to know the details on why I thought this book was just terrible, then you can watch that. It's pretty entertaining, I think, if you like to watch people complain, which frankly I do sometimes, because I was really going after it. Like, I was mad. I'm over it now, and I think only because I had that video and you guys to vent to. So if you did watch that and comment on it, thank you so much for just letting me have that moment, you know, to get it out. I feel better now. So I'm not gonna waste your time. I'm just gonna say, don't read that book. I don't care if you're a Stranger Things fan or not. Not worth your time. Anyways, let's move on. Now, you might be noticing, if you are a math whiz and you have somehow managed to count all of those books, that was only 9. And I said 10 at the beginning of this video. I did read 10, but one of them was a reread of Fahrenheit 451, my 7th time reading this book, my first time on audiobook, and for me, that's always going to be a perfect read. I know it's not a perfect book for a lot of people, but to me, it speaks to me on a, like, level with my soul, okay? So I really love that book. It's not even fair for me to rate and review it because of how much it means to me, if that makes sense. But I just wanted to throw that in there as like a reread mention that I love Fahrenheit, and if you haven't read it, you totally should. It's a book about censorship and about books being burned. It's a futuristic world, and it's eerily similar to the world we live in now. So if that at all interests you and you are okay with Bradbury's unique, lyrical, almost poetic, genre-less style, then go for it if you haven't read it already. And yeah, I just wanted to mention that. So that does make it 10. I counted, okay? That is it for my February reading wrap-up. Thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me for a few minutes of your day. I so appreciate you being here. If you liked this video, do me a favor, give it a quick thumbs up and drop me a comment below. Let me know which book you loved or hated last month. I'm cool with either one. And let's chat a little bit. If you're new here and you haven't subscribed yet, but you like all things bookish, book reviews, hauls, unhauls, TBRs, new book releases, all the good bookish stuff, then I'm your girl. So go ahead and press that subscribe button and I will see you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye, guys.